Hi everyone, thanks so much for being here. My name is Kat and I make houseplant videos here on Good and Planty. If you just so happen to absolutely love this video, please consider liking it, commenting, subscribing, or following me on Instagram. All of these things help me grow my channel like a plant. Okay, so a lot of people are getting into houseplants right now and winter is upon us. I figured that right now is the perfect time to talk about low light tolerant houseplants. A few quick low light reminders. Low light does not mean no light. So just because these plants can sit in low light does not mean that they are going to be fine with absolutely no light. Also keep in mind that these plants are probably not going to grow a lot if they are kept in low light. So low light tolerant just means that they're not going to die. It does not mean that they are going to thrive in low light. And lastly, make sure that you cut back on watering if you are keeping these plants in lower light. If a plant is in lower light, it's going to be sucking up less water and drying out a lot slower. Okay, so with all that being said, let's talk about low light tolerant plants. Meek always finds the worst time to play with his toys. So let's start off with a classic snake plants. Here are two different snake plants that I have, and kind of just shows you that you can definitely have a variety of snake plants in your home. For the most part, they're all going to be very low light tolerant. I'm not going to dispute that one bit. Hi Meek. What are you doing? What are you doing? I have his bone up here. So this is the Sansevieria robusta, and then this is the Sansevieria Fernwood Mikado, I think is how you say it. I am going to be calling them Sansevieria. I'm so sorry. Okay, so the next plant is a classic here on this channel. It is Syngonium. Syngonium, again, are low light tolerant plants, and it's no secret that I absolutely love them. The one thing that I'm going to say about Syngonium is that if you're looking for low light plants specifically, definitely go with a more simple pattern Syngonium. So this is mostly green, and under decent light you'll get a little bit of the pink veining, but it will, you know, be fine in low light. If you are getting a Syngonium with more striking coloration or variegation, you are probably going to have to give it a little bit more light to keep those colors. But if you're okay with it just losing a little bit of its vibrancy, then this is a perfect contender for low light. It's going to do just fine. This is the Syngonium Berry Illusion, and I definitely recommend this as a Syngonium that would do well in low light. Okay, next we have the lemon lime philodendron, and this is the vining version. There's also like the upright one. So this is kind of a classic, but a lot of the times in low light tolerant lists, you'll see the regular heartleaf philodendron, which is the more dark green kind, and that's probably going to do a little bit better in low light, but I don't have that, first of all, and second of all, I think that this variety would do just fine in low light. If you get the lemon lime over the regular heartleaf philodendron, you might just notice that some of its vibrancy fades with time and its leaves will get kind of smaller, especially if you're not staking it up. I just find that this is a little bit more fun than the regular green variety and adds like a slight pop of color, and I don't know, I just wanted to mix things up. Okay, next plant, the ZZ Raven and the regular old ZZ. This is a regular kind. Both of these plants are notorious low light tolerant plants, and I'm not going to argue that at all. These are one of the few plants that actually grew in low light for me, so not any crazy growth, but they did actually put out some new foliage in low light. Between the two, so the regular green variety and this ZZ Raven, the ZZ Raven is actually going to be even more tolerant of low light than the regular variety. The variegated variety that's kind of popping up a little bit more now will need the most light out of the three options. Okay, so next up we have the Maranta. I found this plant to actually prefer prefer lower light than being under any grow lights. So it was doing really well in low light. Then I put it under some grow lights and it actually started to decline a bit and burn, and its leaves were not opening and closing normally, which was a good sign for me, well, a bad sign, that it needs less light. So I pulled it back and I put it in an east-facing window, and it's bouncing back a little bit. As long as you're giving it high humidity and keeping the soil a little bit moist, this plant's gonna do just fine with, you know, very medium to low indirect light. Okay, and now we're going to talk about Dracaena. And don't tell me that the snake plant or Dracaena, leave me alone. I always make that joke, but you guys are so nice to me. I've never gotten yelled at yet. It's incredible. You guys are amazing. Anyway, so let's talk Dracaena. So this is a Dracaena marginata, and this poor plant is constantly getting neglected just because its growth pattern is kind of so sprawled out. I never have a good place for it. So it kind of just lives in a hanging macrame hanger on my ceiling in a lower light area. And now this plant is doing the best it's ever done. I water it once a week and it gets pretty low light. It's not anywhere near a grow light. I actually just gave this a grow light, but this growth was completely from low light. And it also kept its slight variegation, so it has a little bit of white and pink variegation, and that did not fade in low light. So I've been really loving the flexibility of this plant and how little I have to do for it. And then also the Dracaena sanderiana is how you say it, or the lucky bamboo, which is actually not bamboo, it is a Dracaena. This plant is also just shoved into a super low light area of my room, and it's not particularly thriving, but it's also because I am keeping it in this nasty water that has to be changed. So this is on me, but the light has been completely fine for this plant, and because it sits in water, it's also very low maintenance. You can put this in pebbles and maybe even soil, but I've never done that, and at this point I think it's a little too late to acclimate this plant to a different potting medium. But with all that being said, this plant has been doing just fine in low light, as with all the other plants that I've been talking about, and I think this is a super easy beginner plant. Okay, and lastly, we are going to end on a very, very classic low light tolerant plant, and it is the Pothos. This is the golden Pothos, and I've actually been keeping it close to a south facing window, and this plant does not like that very much. You can see some burning on the tips, and honestly, the variegation isn't even that strong from being so close to the light. You can see some good variegation here, but then also some burning. I should probably move this plant, but what are you gonna do? But yeah, this plant is super, super okay with being in low light. It's such a low maintenance plant that I absolutely, obviously recommend it for beginners. Don't put this in your south facing window. Okay, so those are all of my low light tolerant plants that I have in my home. Oh, a little bonus. This giant peace lily is also low light tolerant. It just will not flower as much. I hope that's a little helpful for any of you guys that were looking for low light tolerant, easy care plants to, you know, enjoy the winter with. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!